Okay, opening the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting at 5:31 p.m. We start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, Chair Rob Weltman, present. Vice Chair Daniel Kanahele, present. Tova Callender, present. Everett Dowling. Here. Okay, Lehua Nani Huddleston Hapoka is absent. Randall Leach. Here. Mike Moran. Jennifer Sullivan and Brian Ward. Thank you.
So we have quorum, but we're down. Okay. Vilina mai na dada o ke komike o dada o kai ulu no ka papa ho o dada no Maui hama. Vilina mai na ho I ka po e o ke ena ho o dada o ke kalana o Maui. Me ka daho o Maui ne. E ho o pakako I ke iahia I ke ano o hana ana I ka apana o honua ula e kapa I ana mamua o Wailea 670. O maka I ka ho o maa ho ana I na palapala aina o Maui hama apau. So I'd first like to welcome new CPAC member Gary Passon. Want to stand up so everyone can see who you are? He has been appointed by the mayor to replace Wayne Nishiki, but he can't actually join us on this side of the tables until after the Board of Ethics meetings on July 12th. Our topics tonight are the land use designations for Honua Ula Wailea 670, which were deferred from 2 weeks ago. A proposal from Tova Calendar to allocate a number of parcels affected by sea level rise as open space, a review of the land use designations we have already completed, and a review of descriptive text about the South Maui sub-areas, which are sections 3.3 to 3.5 of the plan draft. And we're not going to be reviewing every land use designation, only those that one or more CPAC members feel needs revisiting. Since there are many agenda items, and it may take most of the evening to get to the later ones, this time we'll accept testimony on any of the evening's topics, either at the beginning of the meeting or just before the particular topic. Yes?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to take a minute. I'm going to make a motion, and I hope the motion is seconded. I'll explain the reasons why I'm making the motion. If I do get a second. And my motion is to postpone discussion of items B through E on the agenda. Everything except public testimony and other committee business. But that's my motion.
Is there a second?
I second for discussion.
Okay, discussion.
I'm going to speak to the motion. So I wasn't here at last week's meeting because I was off island at a family reunion. And so it came to my attention after I returned and watched some of the last week's CPAC meeting posted on YouTube that a member of CPAC resigned and several members of CPAC weren't permitted to participate because they had not filed their financial disclosure statements by June 6th. And this is a concern to me because that means we're down 30% of our complement of CPAC members. Tonight, I think there's 9 of us. It's a concern to me because I don't believe it was the fault of the individuals who did not get their financial disclosure statements by the deadline. I don't believe it's their fault because of the shortness of the notice that we all received on June 1st. I read it on June 2nd, that I needed to do that, file financial disclosure statement to the Board of Ethics. But apparently for a few of our CPAC members, they weren't able to do it in time. And so now they can't participate in these meetings until, at the earliest, July 12th. There are 13 members of the CPAC, and we are all appointed either by the mayor or the county council to give community input on the draft community plan review for South Maui. And all of us, at least for the county council, I know were those who selected by council, county council were selected based on their background, their knowledge, and where they live in the South Maui area, to make sure there was diversity and inclusivity on the CPAC. Also significantly, 3 out of the 4 CPAC members who cannot participate were raised in South Maui. They were raised in Maui, or they were raised in Kulakai. Lehua is raised in South Maui. So we have 4. And that's over 100+ years of historical knowledge that they have of this area. And I think all of us have been greatly appreciative of what these members bring to the CPAC. I don't think this is fair to them, because I don't think it's their fault due to the shortness of notice. I don't think it's fair to the CPAC, because we rely on each other's background and expertise in order to make the best decisions moving forward for what we see that the community wants as a vision for South Maui. And I don't think it's fair to the community, because these specific CPAC members have cultural and historic knowledge that are important to historic preservation in our planned area. For that reason, I think we can postpone deliberation and voting on these items till July 12th, when we're all here, including the most recently appointed member of the CPAC, who can't participate either until, at the earliest, July 12th. Also, I think we have the benefit of time. We have time. We have up until October to finish this process. So if we postpone these agenda items to July 12th, it'll just add another 2 weeks. It'll make for a much shorter meeting tonight, for sure. But then we'll have those persons that have been here consistently and diligently throughout our community plan meetings with us. And somehow I think our plan will be less diluted, or more diluted rather, and less pono if they are not with us. So I hope you will support me in my motion to postpone these items until the July 12th meeting. Thank you.
Discussion? Tova?
I agree. For me as well, it doesn't sit quite right that we started this venture in this room together, other than the lack of female representation, with a fairly accurate cross-section of our population, and that we have benefited from that. There was an error in deadline made, but it was made on 2 sides. It seems like the community, this plan, and the committee is bearing the brunt of the county's inability to review it a little bit faster and get us on track. I know everyone's busy, everyone's doing their best, but this committee was doing their best too to commit to the time. And to me, it doesn't seem quite right to allow that extended time away. Do I want us to wrap up? Do I have things picked out to do when I have my Wednesdays back? Absolutely. But it's the lesser of 2 evils. Do we want a plan that's quick and done, or do we want a plan that ends with the support and the voices that were here from the beginning in informing what we need for the future of South Maui?
More discussion? Oh, Mike?
Yeah, I too have mixed emotions. I certainly, when a couple of community members told me, you have plenty of time, I'm like, well, that's easy to say. You didn't volunteer. You know, it's like, I volunteered for 6 months. So in one sense, yes, I feel it's like to say, well, we've got till October. Well, I sure didn't sign up to be here till October. But on the other hand, it seems that the governmental process is not balanced. And one example I will offer is when the community voted for a charter change back in November, it was to get balance on the Maui Planning Commission, where it said that there had to be a representative from each district on the Planning Commission, and there could be no more than 2 members from any single district. Well, currently, this is June. I mean, that was November. That law took effect. Here it's June, and no changes have been made. There's still nobody from South Maui. Wailuku has 3. So, and I keep understanding that the charter is the ultimate law. That's our Constitution. But that just seems to get washed away. Well, that's not important. It's a bunch of volunteers. Well, so some volunteers are really held to a strict, oh, you didn't get this done, you're out. Other situations not, so it doesn't seem fair. And lastly, whether it's happenstance or whatever, who got knocked out were three Kanakas, and tonight we have another one absent. So there's a great missing element in the makeup for, that's the result of it. And regardless of whose fault is it the fault of the government for not giving people enough sufficient time, especially to volunteers, or is it the volunteers' responsibility to get the job done? So there's a mixed decision making on that, but what we're left with is certainly unsatisfactory. Mahalo.
Anyone else? Brian?
I too have mixed feelings on it. I too would like to get my Wednesdays back somewhat. But I would agree specifically on the text section, and thank you for your contribution for submitting those. I personally think that it's critical to have those individuals involved. Again, feel I'm qualified to be able to say, is it correct or not? And I think that it's important that they have a chance and an opportunity to ensure that it's represented appropriately. So for that reason, specifically on that category, that topic on the agenda, I think it should be tabled until they have an opportunity to participate.
Anyone else? So, go ahead.
Looking forward, I know that we are not going to have a CPAC meeting on July 5th. That's been noticed. So our next meeting would be next week. But we may not have a quorum next week. So if we don't have a quorum next week, our next meeting would be July 12th. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. I think we all have given a lot of time and effort to this process. I think for me, it's a once-in-a-lifetime process to have this opportunity. And so I feel it's really important that we do the best possible job we can do. And I have my doubts that we can do that without input from the members who aren't able to participate tonight. I think their input is critical to all the agenda items. They weren't able to participate last week, and again tonight. So I just feel that this is not pono, and if we can correct it, we should do that.
So I want to be sure I get your motion correctly. So are you proposing that we take testimony on items, did you say D and E?
I think we can take, my motion is to postpone agenda items B, C, D, and E. But I think we can take anybody who wishes to testify on any item that's agendized can do so at the beginning of the meeting. It's their choice. If you support my motion, then they can choose to do so or not, or come back on July 12th and testify on the items. But yeah, my motion is to postpone B, C, D, and E until all of the 4 CPAC members are able to participate, because at the moment they're not allowed to, not because they're sick or because they're on vacation, because they're allowed to by what I consider an administrative oversight.
Okay, Brian?
Could I potentially make a friendly amendment? You can say no. But I guess I would ask that we proceed with C and D. I don't necessarily think that specifically D, we've been discussing those land designations for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I think that there were concerns that those would have been raised in advance. And C, I guess I would say it as well, is that I think it kind of stands on its own, that it's kind of a yes/no logical thing. So that would be my friendly amendment.
Brian, I hear the logic of that. I can hear the logic of that because we've had lengthy discussions on C and D, to my knowledge. Yeah, C and D. I don't know about C though. I know we've had lengthy discussions on D. I don't think I've been involved in discussions on C, but would you be open to having discussions on just D and not A, C, and E?
I guess I would ask Tova your thoughts on C, because since you presented it. And the reason being is that I don't want to oversimplify or overcomplicate. So,
I mean, I hear that what we're trying to do is get to some sort of consensus so we can have some progress in moving forward tonight in a way that everyone feels comfortable with. So wherever that consensus can be found is great. If there are more people who want to weigh in on that issue, super. I think putting a house in an open space where there isn't one that is in the sea level rise exposure area maybe isn't too controversial, but I don't know.
Everett?
I'm going to vote against it, Daniel. The public's here. The public has come based on this agenda. We've come here based upon this agenda. We're supposed to have been finished in April. We're almost in. We're approaching July. We have a job to do, and I think we should be doing our job and moving forward.
Well, it's going to be a close vote. You need 7. I can accept Brian's friendly amendment. That at least that way we'll get some things done. It's like a compromise. If 7 of you can support that, and then I think that would be great. And then we can save B and E for the July 12th meeting, and at least we'll have our other CPAC members able to participate in that discussion. So it's like the baby, right? And Solomon. So we'll split the baby that way. Say yes.
In that case, I would also propose a friendly amendment, and that would be that we only accept testimony on the things we're going to be discussing today.
I accept that friendly amendment.
It was Tova second? Okay, Tova is okay with that. Any more discussion? Okay, so let me formulate this, make sure I understand it. So the motion is that we today only discuss open space designation for parcels in the 3.2 foot Solexa and the adopted land use designations. And we accept testimony on those two items, and everything else gets deferred until July 12th. Okay. Jen or Brian?
Just a quick question. Do we know for certain that July 12th that they will be approved? Because if we pick July 12th and then for whatever reason something doesn't happen, I just asked that as a question to mitigate risk.
So thank you. My understanding is as long as the Board of Ethics accepts the financial disclosure statements at their meeting, that's fine. Then they can participate that evening. So as long as they get it in on time, it should be good.
So they're meeting during the day, so it'll be before our meeting?
That is correct.
Do we know that they've been submitted?
I know that Kyoki's has. The only one I haven't been able to reach is Cody's. I don't know whether... All been submitted, okay. And Gary has also submitted, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so you've heard the motion. Since there's I'm going to be some disagreement, I'll ask for a vote. Those in favor of the motion, as I read it up, please raise your hand. And those against? And I'm abstaining, so I don't know what that adds up to. Okay, so motion fails. The next thing actually on the agenda is Brian's reading of the vision statement. You got to repeat while Daniel is away. Now he's back.
I actually read it earlier today at our GM meeting for that. Which, by the way, all of the GMs from the resorts and the shops said thank you for all of our work. South Maui's beaches, coastal waters, and wetlands are restored and thriving, with affordable housing close to good jobs and a variety of transportation options, including safe walking and biking paths lined with trees. The region's businesses, parks, and neighborhoods are connected, maintaining the small town lifestyle. Cultural resources are protected and celebrated, enhancing South Maui's sense of community. Oh, sorry, place. Who's the next victim?
That's what I was going to ask. So Tova already did it. How about Jennifer? Okay, Jennifer's next. Okay. Since we won't be seeing each other for a while, I just wanted to mention, I went through all the, I had to go through all the minutes in order to figure out what things were deferred that we need to discuss again, since we're entering the period, we're reviewing things that we've done in the past. And I have to say, they were absolutely excellent minutes. I encourage you all to read them. They're probably the best minutes I've ever seen. They are, it's very easy to find the decisions, who voted for and against. That's kind of the main thing. but they also even give a sense of how the decisions were reached, and there's even some humor there, which is unusual in minutes. And then probably the most unique and for me very valuable thing is that there are direct links to the videos for where each item is discussed and each piece of testimony is delivered. Makes it very, very easy to go back and see what happened when decisions were made and who was present. Unfortunately, they only go to March 29th, but I'm sure they'll be catching up eventually. So to get the rest of them, I had to actually look at all the videos from after March 29th. And what I found, among other things, is that we made, so far, we made 365 decisions. And that's not counting procedural decisions. Those are decisions about land use, policies, actions. Of those 365, 298 were unanimous. 47 were by majority yes, and 20 were majority no. And also, as you all may remember, it was not a slam dunk, like, okay, we read this one, boom, read the next one, boom. We spent hours and hours and hours, and usually to reach those decisions, a proposal was made, a modification was proposed, was discussed back and forth, and eventually it became unanimous. So I'm pretty proud of that record. And with that, I'm going to open to public testimony. And as I said before, you can either testify now on any of the items, or you can wait until that item comes up. And I guess the microphone's over there. I was expecting an avalanche of testimony today. Okay, going once. Going twice. Gone. I do want to suggest that we make Vernon and Kauanohi resource persons for the discussion on, if we get there, on item E, item E, because you see we have received some very, very useful work by the two of them to improve those sections. Any objections? Okay. And any other recommendations for resource persons before we move on? Okay. Public testimony is closed, but again, because of the Sunshine Law, if you were too slow in responding, you'll still have a chance when we get that item. So the first item is open space designation for parcels in the 3.2-foot Slerexa. Tova brought this up last time, but it took some research to actually develop a list. Tova? Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over. Yeah, the first item on the agenda is actually Honolulu, the Wailea 670. Yes. Okay. So we have, I think we have as realistic alternatives a proposal from the planning department and a proposal from the developers of Honolulu Partners. Daniel?
I would like to make a motion to accept the planning department's recommendation for Honolulu / Wailea 670 land use designations.
Is there a second? Second by Tova. Okay, discussion? Tova?
Can I ask a clarifying question to planning? There was some testimony submitted some weeks ago that caught a few things that hadn't been reflected in the county, in the planning department map, but had been a part of the final agreement. I think Lucien Dene had sent in something that offered some corrections. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to tell whether or not those were reflected in what we're looking at and voting on.
The updated map that is in your packet reflects the approved version from October of 2022. So that was last year, the most recently approved map by the Maui Planning Commission.
the map that I see in the packet is missing the Pi'ilani Highway Open Space Corridor. I don't see that indicated on the map.
This map is based off the one that we received, so if you're saying there's an open space corridor that needs to be added into there. Okay. You can- Do you have the exact text of how wide the corridor is?
No, but I'm sure Hunu'ula Partners has that.
I don't know if this would be an appropriate time to address Daniel's comment, Chair. I didn't hear public testimony called for this.
Hang on. You're not a committee member. So we have to decide whether we want to make him a resource member so he can ask questions of him.
I think it's a good idea, and I think it might have been a little unclear that we were doing public testimony on everything on the agenda. Is that what we did? Because
We did, but we're also, he could have done, I mean, this is the first item, so.
Yeah, so he can still speak.
No, we closed public testimony from the beginning, but we could still make him a resource person.
I'd like to make him as a resource if somebody else agrees.
Any objections? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Can do. Cal Chip Chase with Honolulu Partners. I appreciate the opportunity to serve as a resource. I just offer this just in case anyone else had the same confusion. Normally when public testimony is open at the beginning and then closed, it's then reopened at each item. And I was waiting for that so that I didn't take up anybody else's time who might have needed to testify first and leave. So I appreciate that I'm at least able to serve as a resource. Daniel, who is involved in the project with me for many years now, and even before I've been involved, is correct. The map that the Planning Department has put before you is not the map that was approved by the Planning Commission for Phase 2. It's an older version of the map. It's not accurate. I pointed that out at my last testimony. It remains true. And it highlights one of the problems with this effort is that when you have a project district, which is unique among zoning classifications, it's very different. You follow a very different process. You follow a Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 process. We have completed Phase 2. And so we have a map that's been adopted by the Planning Commission reflecting uses and areas. That map can be changed both by the Planning Department and by the Planning Commission. It can be completely redone by the Planning Commission without needing to come back to Council or needing to amend your project community plan designation. And so the error that Daniel has pointed out is just highlights the problem with the effort here to wipe away a project district and instead designate specific uses.
So, Chair and Planning, maybe we need I like Planning Department to speak to that. What was just a...
The map that we recommended is based on this 2022 site map. So possibly the open space corridor you're talking about is right there along the roadway, and it's just designated as a road on there instead of showing that as there being an open space buffer.
I think Daniel's comment was more about the overall differences between the current plan and the 2022 plan.
The only place that there might be a difference is the part that's purple, which they call village mixed use, but those are duplexes in the agreement. So to us, that was residential and not mixed use. So the purple is designated as residential in the map that you guys have before you to give the ability to do different types of residential.
Can we ask our resource person, are there any other differences of significance between the 2022 plan and the current status of this plan, this map?
The map that you're looking at, there are other differences, including where the preservation or park, I believe, is designated. During the Phase 2 process, the map that we began the process with was amended. It was changed through the process to reflect commissioner comments, community comments, testifiers' comments, and so the final map that was adopted is not in exactly the same orientation as the map that was subject to the application. That's what the process is for. You come in, you collect the community comments, commissioner comments, and you make changes. And so it's a result of using an outdated map. Using the correct map would address that portion of the problem, but it wouldn't address my other comments.
Yeah, I think all those differences were addressed by Luciana 2 weeks ago in her testimony.
She did comment on some of them, Chair.
Everett?
Council, so what you're suggesting, I guess your preference is a special purpose district?
Yes, and as an effort to compromise, the testimony that we put in recognizes or retains the special purpose district, but we carved into that through mapping efforts the gulches and things that obviously would be preserved and would not be developed that are consistent with our Phase 2. And so what we tried to do is create some balance, a compromise where we retain our flexibility but recognize those areas that won't be subject to development because they are gulches mapped and consistent with our Phase 2 approval. And so what we would ask respectfully is that this body recommend, that this body adopt and then recommend for further adoption the map that we have put forward in our testimony.
Cal, has that map been submitted as public testimony?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Dean has just corrected me. It has not. Let me take a step back. He reminded me, or that comment reminds me, we had proposed that as a compromise to the planning department. They've rejected it, actually. So we stuck with the proposal that we have here, which paints the area blue. I'm happy to provide the map that we compromised that does depict the gulches.
Do you have that map with you?
Dean, do you have that map with us? Not a paper version.
Okay. Do we have something we can pull up on the screen?
We can. Just take a moment.
Okay, thank you.
The draft map that was submitted, I guess it was as public testimony on June 7th. Actually, no, May 31st. That one has all blue except for the neighborhood center and is public, quasi-public, and the neighborhood center.
And
so that one we have received.
So, Chair, we resubmitted testimony on June 19th.
Yeah, so in this one it goes back to all blue. Does everyone see that? The testimony from right there? Okay. So those, I think, those are the two alternatives we have.
Yeah.
Unless we can get some compromise on the planning department's proposal.
Chair, we have it. It's just a question of how to bring it up on the screen.
Which one?
We have what we proposed as a compromise.
Okay.
It's just a question of how to present it to you.
Is it the same as the one that was 2 weeks ago?
No, Chair.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to do that. It's like a mix of low tech and high tech.
I think I heard that. It's not appropriate. Okay, further discussion, questions for the resource person? We have a motion by Daniel. I don't know if you want to amend that or add, to fold in the changes that were made to the agreement.
Planning, is it your understanding that the Pialani corridor is part of the map? We just can't see it on the map? The Pialani open space corridor.
If it had been clearly on there, we would have included it. It was just in there as the road. We can add that, and we can, if you want to make the motion to add that.
I'd like to make a motion to add that open space corridor.
And to double check that
Yeah,
everything
double check
reflects what the planning commission, the changes the planning commission made.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I make a friendly amendment to add the open space corridor to the map that come out of planning, the map we're looking at right now that we have before us. So that's my amendment to my motion.
How about the other things that were adopted by the Planning Commission last year? Like the preserve?
I haven't, I guess it'd be good if I saw what we were talking about. The preserve, I don't understand about the preserve. There is a preservation area, native plant preservation. Is that what you're referring to? Go ahead.
So Lucian gave us a list of things that needed to be fixed.
I think that was the meeting, I wasn't it. But, yeah, I'd be open to friendly amendments on that. But that's my motion so far, and if there are friendly amendments to that, we'll go with that, okay?
I'm sorry, Tova?
Can I add on the friendly amendment that it also include all of the other changes that have been accepted by the Planning Commission that aren't reflected in the current map, in addition to your open space around that? Anyway.
Okay, so to be clear, the list that Lucian provided that was on May 31st. Go ahead, Janet.
So I'm just reading Dean's testimony, and a lot of the red, so the verbiage in red that he has inserted to me, it sounds like they are putting words to this map and their promise and their designation, what they're going to do to open space. Does anybody else see that in the writing? And if so, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to add under changes and challenges and opportunities that verbiage from Dean.
We're
So
actually
we
gonna
can't do the text today. We have to do, because of that. We have
It's
to
a
do that
separate
later.
agenda item.
So just have to focus on the
It's a
maps.
yeah, it's a separate agenda item. So on May 31st, Lucienne provided she provided on the 27th for the 31st meeting, a map showing all the differences, things that needed to be fixed.
The areas
Karen?
of change are actually on the agenda, which is the verbiage you're talking about, and the testimony was submitted weeks ago, so it's publicly available. You are allowed to add that if you would like, because it is on there.
But we'll get there when we get to that item on the agenda. So Daniel, as the maker of the motion, what's your position now?
I made the motion, amendment about the corridor, and I accepted Tova's friendly amendments. That's where the motion stands. Okay, my motion is to go with the planning department's recommendation for land use designation with a friendly amendment to add the Pi'ilani open space corridor that runs along Pi'ilani on the Maka side of the road, on the Wailea 670 side of the road, and to add the friendly amendments. Can't enumerate them, but that Tova has asked to also include. Tova, if you'd like to enumerate them, you may.
There will be no enumerating. It will be the recommendations by the Land Use Commission. Maui Planning Commission, wrong commission. Yeah, the most updated version of the plan.
Discussion? Kavika?
I'm just going to reiterate what Mr. Chipchase said about reopening testimony on each agenda item for you guys' consideration prior to taking you guys' votes. Even though we opened it in the beginning of the meeting, my understanding is Sunshine requires us to open it on each agenda item as well prior to taking the votes.
This was the first agenda item, but okay. Reopening. Should we have a motion, though? Shouldn't we have a motion?
Because it was not clear that it was open for this agenda item, it would be better to open it and then take the vote. So you're not taking a vote uninformed by public testimony.
Okay. And what do we do with the motion? Before or after testimony? I don't know. What is the guidance there?
It's better to hear public testimony before you vote on it.
So my comment on that is that's why it's good to have Corporation Counsel present when we get to places like this on CPAC committee rules and parliamentary procedure, right? So we don't have the benefit of Corporation Counsel, so we're just going to have to do the best we can with what we know, and I think we'll be fine.
Okay, I'm going to respect the guidance from the planning department and opening public testimony for item C. No, I'm sorry, item B, with the Wailea 670 land use designations. Any public testimony?
Chair, may I ask, is this only on the map or on the text as well?
This is only the map. We have, because, yeah, this is only on the map. We had the testimony on everything, but now we have testimony on each individual item. The text is in item E. Oh, okay, she added that. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All right, very good, Chair. Members, Cal Chipchase again. Now in a public testimony role. Just to address it in this subject or the framework of the motion, if the motion were to adopt the map that was approved by the Planning Commission, at least the community plan would be consistent with the Planning Commission's map. If that's what you're trying to do, that's how you would do it. The problem would remain that you would be taking away a right that an approved project district has to make changes through the Phase 3 process or to go back to the Planning Commission in the Phase 2 process. That's not something that you should do. That's not the role of this commission. But if your goal was only to make it consistent with the Phase 2, that is how you would have to do it, to adopt the map that was approved by the Planning Commission. The text changes that we put forward accurately reflect the project, and they're important. So, for example, the text that we have on the first page of the June 19th testimony reflects where the project is today with a Phase 2 approval by the Maui Planning Commission. The two text changes shown on the second page of the June 19th testimony. The first accurately reflects the area of preservation and conservation land as opposed to other designations. It's not 200, it's 170. That's what was approved by the Planning Commission. So it's important to make that textual change. Under the challenges and opportunities, what we have put forward accurately reflects the project and the status of the project rather than the text that was proposed. And so we'd like to reflect that in totality. The final deletion is similar to a deletion that was proposed by Maui Tomorrow. And so I'll talk a little bit about their proposed text changes. They propose two. One is to say that the affordable housing is at 20% of the total housing. That's actually inaccurate. We're doing affordable housing, workforce housing at 25% of the total units, and that's what was approved by the Planning Commission. So that portion of the text is accurate. Maui Tomorrow's amendment is not. Maui Tomorrow proposed to amend another portion of the text to say, to delete the line that there's opposition because, or there's legal challenges because they oppose the project. And in support of that, they referenced a dispute over how many units are to be developed. With respect, that is not why Maui Tomorrow has opposed the project. They oppose the project, including on the ground that they think it should have 2 golf courses, because the original project zoning, or at least 1 golf course, included references to golf courses. They oppose the project. That's simply true. Rather than get into all of that back and forth involving a party that we're in litigation with, just delete the last sentence, as we proposed. It makes it cleaner. It doesn't have this body taking sides in any dispute. It just presents the facts, and that's what we've urged you to do. If I could come just briefly back to the map, because it is so important to us, I would ask that you preserve our flexibility, the flexibility that was built into the zoning codes. Thank you very much.
Clarifying questions, the testifier? Okay, so back to the motion. Any further testimony on this item? Public testimony? Okay, closing public testimony on item B. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, the motion is regarding the map
Yes.
only. Okay.
Yes.
And to the counselor's testimony, the map that we're voting on is the same that's proposed by the Planning Commission, which is consistent. So we would be consistent with them. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. Okay. And I'll call for a vote because I'm not sure whether there's a total agreement on this. Those in favor of Daniel's motion, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And I am abstaining, but I think that still means there's no majority. Is that right? Okay. Okay. So that failed. Can I get a new motion?
I move that we accept that the map from the October 22 Planning Commission meeting that was approved be the map, and that we accept the language, the revisions to the language in the description.
Which means project district for that. So you're proposing? Or, I mean special purpose district. Is that what you're proposing?
Correct.
Okay. Seconded by Jennifer. Discussion? Daniel?
Yeah, I'm going to oppose this motion because I don't think that this project fits into the definition of a special purpose district, which reads, the special purpose district community plan designation is intended to provide for specific land uses that due to their uniqueness or incompatibility do not easily fall within one or a combination of other community plan designations. Appropriate uses, airports, other established uses that do not easily fall within one or more of the other community plan designations. I believe that the proposed land uses do fall within the proposed land use designations. All of them fall within that. There's nothing unique about Wailea 670 that would make them a special purpose district. It doesn't fit. So I don't support this motion. I think a special purpose district is too broad and unclear as to what can be done in the area. But in any case, there is no one or two land uses within this project that cannot have a land use designation that we've already determined. So that's why I supported the planning department, because I think it best describes the land uses that can be had in this 670-acre development. Doesn't fit special purpose designation.
Everett?
Just for clarity, on the plan that was approved by the Planning Commission, the map that was approved by the Planning Commission, Daniel, would you support using that map?
Sorry, I'd really like to see things in front of me and don't have that. Is that it? I don't have that in front of me. Is that it?
Is that the one that was approved by the Planning Commission?
This is the map from the meeting that the Planning Commission approved it at, but there were changes to the map. So that's what Daniel was trying to get added, was just whatever was the changes were getting added. But this is the map that our map is based on. We just didn't have the changes in there.
That's true, I could use a different one. Cal Chipchase again. This is the map that was submitted as part of the application.
I'm sorry, did you get a question from Everett?
I had a question from Everett.
I'm asking if this is the plan that came out of the October 22nd Planning Commission.
Okay.
It is not. It is not. A specific map was adopted by the Planning Commission. This is not it.
And the changes that Daniel's proposed to update this map
I believe in Lucienne's testimony, which Chair has referenced, she identified a number of those changes. I couldn't say she caught all of them. So if you were going to adopt a map and intending that to reflect the Planning Commission map, you would simply say that the map will be the one that was approved by the Planning Commission.
Not really, because I don't have that map in front of me. We don't have that map in front of us. I think we all need to be on the same page. And if we're discussing a map, we need to be able to look at it. So this is problematic. Yeah.
So we do have a motion and a second. Are there any amendments to that, or?
I too would like to see the map. Can you tell us the designations? I mean, like you're not allowing, it's not 100% special project. It was with the open space around the gulches.
The map that was approved by the Planning Commission is a variation of this map that changes in some ways certain designations and locations of specific uses. For example, we expanded a preservation area to accommodate the preservation of a portion of the property that Daniel had recommended preserving. We enlarged some areas in the South Preservation Area in response to other community testimony. We moved some other uses and roads in response to the need for additional drainage. So there are changes to the map that make it different from this in ways that could be problematic for us when we go in for phase 3 and for subdivision. So if a map were to come out of this body that weren't simply a project district map or some variant of that, it would need to at least reflect the actual map approved by the Planning Commission.
Given that, I would like to modify my motion to approve the language, the description, but not the map, and then address the map at a later date.
Just to be clear, so your motion is not talking about the map and its designation, but just the language in the, sorry. It's tough when you have to wear so many different glasses. Sorry. I'll try yours in a bit. Yeah. The suggested language for areas of change. Is that what we're talking about? Okay, let me look at that.
So you were throwing your motion for the map? Okay. I would suggest we deal with these one at a time. So if we have no motion which can possibly succeed today, I suggest we defer the discussion on that to a later meeting, and then have the exact map in front of us for next time. Does it sound like a good time? Okay. Someone needs to make that motion.
So moved.
He withdrew it. You withdrew the map motion. Yes. So you make a motion to defer the map part.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Jennifer. Everyone, any objections to deferring the map decision for YD 670? Okay, we have done that. Okay, now on to the text.
Okay, there were no objections. That means all 8 of us supported it. No, you're not voting, right? So I just want to make sure we got 7 every time. There's 9 of us, so we got 8 no objections, right? Okay.
But also abstaining counts as a yes in this context. But anyway, so now we're on to the. But anyway, we're on to the discussion about the text.
Chair, can you restate the motion on the floor, please? And who was seconding it, the motion?
Everett proposed adopting the changes to the text that are proposed in Dean Frampton's testimony, and Jennifer seconded it. Discussion?
Chair.
Brian?
In the last sentence, I would potentially propose a friendly amendment to include that it's, and I have to think about the phrasing of this, but Lahua was always kind of saying to make sure that we're bringing in the cultural advisors. So if adding the preservation, conservation of native plants in historic and cultural sites in conjunction with cultural advisors or something of that nature would be my suggestion. Correct. Consulting with.
Okay.
Do we want to, does it need to be worded better? 'Cause let me look at what I actually said. So after cultural sites, if we can add in consultation with cultural advisors.
Everett is okay. Jen? Okay.
Brian, can you read out that whole sentence the way that you're amending it so I can at least hear it? Thank you.
The project will also include approximately 260 acres of open space, preservation and conservation of native plants, and significant historic and cultural sites. In consultation with cultural advisors.
So Brian, that what you're adding in applies to the cultural sites,
Correct.
just the cultural sites.
Well, I would say native plants as well.
I'd like to hear from Vernon.
We did make Vernon and Ka'onohi resource persons, so if we have a question to Vernon, if he's willing to answer.
Okay, where are we at? On the second one? Oh, the red
Yeah,
one.
the bottom of the, yeah, be the red, the bottom of the first paragraph.
Preservation of native plants. So after cultural sites is what you're looking for, right? To include like cultural advisory or something like
Right,
that,
consultation with the cultural advisors.
Yeah, you putting that in tonight, Karen, or Kavika? in consultation with cultural advisors within that moku. We still in Honu'ula. You'd be okay with that? No need to be specific. So we just keep them in consultation with cultural advisors. Yeah, that's fine.
Tova?
Maybe Native Hawaiian cultural advisors. Yes, might be one coconut. I mean, yeah, I think just put Native Hawaiian cultural advisors, if that's okay.
Thank you. You okay?
Tova?
Can I ask our resource person a question? So there's a line in here about being committed to working with nonprofit organizations to ensure affordable housing opportunities. That's great. Does that mean that that percentage of the units would become more than 25% of the whole project?
It's potentially possible. What we've committed to is 25% of the overall project, or 288 units, which was about 53 more than we needed to do. I can't say that we wouldn't increase it beyond there, but at this point, our commitment is the 25%, or 288 units. And that's reflected in the Planning Commission approval. So that's not only our word, that's an order by the Planning Commission at this point.
Thank you. So in light of that, I'd like to make a friendly amendment. I mean, the way that I look at these paragraphs is that they're kind of just giving a quick, rapid summary of what is happening in this area. And if the reality is that it's still 75% not affordable housing or housing necessarily geared towards local residents, it seems to be hitting it a little bit hard on that piece, because it makes it sound like that portion is bigger than what it is. So I would propose tweaking that line. It's great to include that the public infrastructure is coming and the addition of open space, but it feels a little bit, it would be greenwashing in the environmental world. What is it in the housing world? I don't know. House washing.
So what is your proposal?
To remove the beginning line there about working with nonprofits. I mean, while I applaud that, I don't feel like it's accurately characterizing something that's intended for 75% non-affordable units. Yeah, it's a friendly amendment, which Everett doesn't really look happy about at all.
No, because you're by saying that, you're implying that anyone who doesn't qualify for affordable housing isn't a local resident. And I don't think that's accurate. I think you've got a lot of people in this community, a lot of union households in this community, who don't qualify for affordable housing, but are local residents. I think you've got a lot of engineers in this community. I think you've got a lot of professionals in this community, a lot of doctors. And so,
if I may, Everett, I agree. So I don't think the first line's appropriate either. The crossed out line is appropriate. But I think just let it stand on the facts. It's 25% affordable housing, 75% is not. So take out the however the majority are not geared towards the local market, but also take out the line about advocating for affordable housing.
okay, that sentence, the sentence.
End at the semicolon, nix the red and the black, strike above. That's my proposal.
But leave in place the project would also include significant public infrastructure? Okay, so really we're just taking out one sentence.
Taking out one sentence and accepting the strikeout that was made to the planning language. Yeah, but yes.
I agree with taking out the sentence, but I don't agree with inserting the language that's been struck because...
Me neither.
Okay, so you want to leave this?
Yes.
Okay.
Leave that strike.
Beautiful.
Don't tilt it
we are in
either way.
agreement.
Yeah.
We're in
okay,
agreement. Great.
I'm just going to read the beginning to make sure you guys I understand what you're saying. So it will read, this project will provide the opportunity for 1,150 new residential units. The project will also include significant public infrastructure improvements, including the widening of Pilani Highway to 4 lanes. Okay. And Jennifer, you okay with that? Okay.
think we should, on page 1, the red highlighted area, the additional, right? The Maui County Council approved a change of zoning and established a project district for Honua project area in 2008. The Maui Planning Commission unanimously granted a project district phase 2 approval of the project in 2022. So you don't normally see this kind of language in a community plan, and I don't think that that information needs to be included in the text. So I would make a friendly amendment to not include that. If what we're looking at is just a summary of the project, I don't think that needs to be included. So that, if we can make a friendly amendment for that, not to include that.
I believe in other projects, we've talked about the approvals. I know in the case of Wailea, we've talked about when it was approved. So I don't think this language singles out this project for any different treatment than we've applied to others. I think the high-tech park, I think perhaps in the high-tech park we also addressed it, and maybe even in the promenade.
Can you point me to a page and I can look it up?
No.
I'd like to see it. Anyway, it's my friendly amendment, and Everett doesn't seem obliged to accept that.
Okay, so are we ready to go to decision? And as I understand it, the proposal is to adopt the revision about the Maui County Council approving a change of zoning, those two sentences, and then striking the however the majority are not, and then continuing with the sentence, the project will also include significant public infrastructure, including the widening of Pilani Highway to 4 lanes. And also the project will also include approximately 260 acres of open space, preservation and conservation of native plants and significant historical and cultural sites. And then under it's very hard for us to read. I wonder if you could, Karen, read that last sentence, what one was added.
The project will also include approximately 260 acres of open space, preservation and conservation of native plants and significant historic and cultural sites in consultation with Native Hawaiian cultural advisors.
Can I ask our resources
Right.
a quick question? Is the Pilani Highway going to be expanded concurrently in advance of, can you kind of clarify what that?
Currently under our phase 1, it requires the expansion to be complete before there's vertical construction. So you can do certain site work, but you can't go vertical on the site under our phase 1 approval.
Okay, any further discussion? I'm going to be very bold here. Any objections? Objection. Okay, we'll take a vote. Those in favor of the revised text, please raise your hand. And those against? And abstaining. And so motion fails. Okay, motion fails. Since we're on this topic of this text here, Does someone want to make a motion for the unchanged text so we can get something done? Or a version of that, modification of that? No? Okay. Moving on. So we have deferred the decision on the map. In reality, this means we'll have to come back to the text as well. Daniel? Okay. 10-minute break. Coming back at 7:02. Resuming the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting at 7:05 p.m. So let's see.
Chair?
Brian?
If I could just make a quick comment. During the break, I had asked Jackie, just for my own edification, the text language that was proposed about the county city approval, that the language does not indicate what a decision would be moving forward for the classification or the use case designation, that these are just dates of events that took place. And from planning's perspective, and Jackie, correct me if I'm misquoting you, is that they would find having that language in helpful as they were going and needing to do research. They would know where to look, what time frame to look in. So, Jackie, is that an accurate summary of our conversation?
Yes, thank you.
So I put that out there just for information for everybody.
Okay. Next item is public testimony on the open space designations for parcels in the 3.2-foot Slerexa. Do we have any testifiers on that agenda item? Going once, going twice. Public testimony closed on the open space designation for parcels in the 3.2-foot Slerexa. So everybody have the maps in front of them. So what I'm thinking for this is that we're not going to go through each and every TMK, but I'll ask if, actually first I'll ask Tova to explain how she came up with this list.
Thanks, Rob. So this is an attempt to capture many of our earlier conversations that if an area is not designated open space, has no improvements on it, so there's no development that's happening or anything that's been planned, it's appropriate to set that aside for an open space designation if it falls in the sea level rise exposure area. This helps to support the county rule about the shoreline setbacks and the ordinance that was recently passed that also reflects the language of the sea level rise exposure area, but locks those areas in as open space. So this is the subsection of parcels that were taken out, again, that do not have improvements on them. So in that way, it's not a taking, it's a avoiding future problems that we're all going to have to deal with that involve, health and safety and environmental disasters if we continue to build within areas where we know sea level rise is coming.
Would you like to make a motion to adopt this list?
So I would like to make a motion to motion. I have the notion of a motion to adopt this list in blocks.
In blocks?
I don't know. Is that how we're doing it?
I would recommend that we just adopt as a whole. We first discuss and see if we need to make amendments to it.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay. Sorry. Yes.
Rather than going parcel by parcel.
Thanks, Rob. I motion that we adopt the list of sites that fall in sea level rise exposure area.
And seconded by Jennifer. Daniel?
So, Tova, my question is, I see a list here of TMKs. I count 27. Is that the count? 27 TMKs. Rob is giving me the thumbs up. So I'm guessing it's 27 TMKs that the motion is related to these 27 TMKs. Okay, thank you. And all the maps in here are specifically related to the 27 TMKs? Are all these maps?
This map?
Yes.
That the planning department made? The planning department very kindly made this map of parcels that fall in the Slorexa, but the ones that are captured in this list would be green because they're undeveloped. So it's interesting in that it shows how much trouble we're in for the areas that are already built and are going to be in the Seal Forest exposure area. But we're only looking at the little green parcels because those are open. The intent is not to mess with someone's life that's in motion, it's to protect us from future issues.
But it's actually much easier to see on the enlarged maps because they show only the ones that are proposed. Yeah, those are the ones that are proposed.
I guess a point of further explanation is that in some cases they are right on the coast, and in some cases, because of the way the groundwater works, they're set back a little far. So don't be put off by the blow-ups. These are what will fall in the Slorexa.
Can I just get clarity on the motion? Is it open space for undeveloped parcels with no plans and in Slorexa?
I mean, plans sounds very open-ended. I don't think the intent is that if you had an idea and scratched on a napkin that that's a plan. So what is the right verbiage to capture something that has started its pathway through the planning and approval process?
I guess if no permit has been submitted, I don't know what you folks want to do.
I think the idea here is this is the list. It's not open-ended. It's not saying like anything which has no plan is proposed. This is what's proposed. Are we ready to go to a decision? Daniel?
Just a quick comment. I spent this past week on the windward side of Oahu at a family reunion, and I was out in Punalu'u and Ha'ula. And growing up, we camped out there on the beach and beach parks. And we had family reunions at my auntie's house at Punalu'u. So 25 years later, at where my auntie lived, more than half of that beachside parcel is gone. It's been eroded away. The current owners of the house, she passed on, current owners of the house had to move her beach house inland towards the road. The coconut trees I remembered on that beach lot are all gone. I assume they've fallen into the ocean. The place where our family camped out in, on that side of the island, the beach part, we camped out during the summer. The grassy area, the grassy knoll where we camped, it's not wide enough to put up tents anymore. I was shocked to see how much in certain areas had been eroded from the beach. That was first-hand experience with that. Places I knew, I grew up, I camped at, had family reunions. have greatly diminished in size along the seashore. So yeah, something is definitely happening.
Okay, I'll just put this out there. Any objections? Okay, and we have adopted the proposed list of parcels to be designated open space. The next topic for public testimony is we're going to review the land use designations that we've already adopted. So any public testimony on any of the land use designations that we've adopted? Going once. Going twice. Okay, closing public testimony on the adopted land use designations. So again, as I said in the beginning, we're not going to go through every single land use designation we've adopted. There are hundreds of them. So I'm going to ask for anything that you feel we should revisit at this point. Tova?
I'd like to propose a motion around the 23-acre parcel next to Wailea Dog Park, SF-S, on the Wailea map.
While I appreciate the intention, this is not on the agenda. The agenda is for the adopted land use designations. So it is not for any land you've designated. The designation, what you're doing is creating community plan land use maps. So the maps are the correct verbiage. That there are no maps on the agenda to look at, so the community does not have the opportunity to give testimony.
Daniel?
So just to clarify, we're just looking at the descriptions, the text, right, of the land use designations. We're reviewing all those land use designation descriptions.
That is what D is, yes.
That was certainly not my intention, but okay. So any motion on the adopted land use designations? Daniel?
So, we've had the discussion before about what we call, under all the designations, appropriate uses. Everyone has appropriate uses, and I'd like to make that stronger. That language stronger than appropriate uses, and instead substitute permissible uses for appropriate uses. I think it's stronger than appropriate. Permissible uses is language that I have found used in state land use classifications. There are 4, which are rural, urban, ag, and conservation. So like, for example, under ag land use classifications, in the HRS, they use the word permissible uses. So that just caught my eye when I was reading through the Hawaiian Revised Statutes. Maybe we can discuss it, but my motion is maybe to make the language a little bit stronger. Instead of appropriate uses, go with permissible uses.
Is there a second? Second by Mike. Discussion?
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So now we're kind of getting into Title 19 zoning, where you have permissible uses and special uses and those things.
other comments, discussion? Tova?
I'm sorry, Daniel, I'm slow on the uptake here. Can you give us an example of where within what we are allowed to review within this agenda item that would come up? So you're saying within the definitions of the land use designations, Daniel? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So, under HRS 46-4, counting zoning, just to summarize, requires that counting zoning be accomplished within a framework of a long-range comprehensive general plan prepared or being prepared to guide the overall future development of the county, and explains that zoning is one of the tools available in the county to put the general plan into effect in an orderly manner. So again, the community plans are part of the general plans. The zoning implements the general plan. So the zoning has to work within the framework that is established by the general plans. So I don't see anything wrong with using permissible uses.
Everett?
And Jackie, your recommendation?
I think this could create some confusion when you look at Title 19 and you see what the list of permissible uses are, and then if this is got the same, then which one is it, do we follow? That's what my concern is. And the zoning code refers to permissible uses, accessory uses, and special uses, and those are all clarified for every zoning district in Title 19. So appropriate uses, like what you see on the screen here, low-density residential, park, schools, farming, et cetera, that's appropriate for the community plans. Thank you.
Again, zoning, the tail does not wag the dog. Community plan sets the framework for zoning. Zoning implements the community plan. So if there's a confusion, then the confusion has to be worked out in the zoning, not the community. We're here to talk about community plans and not zoning. That's not our kuleana. So we're trying to pick the best language we think that would implement the vision for the community plan, the land use designations, and I don't think appropriate uses is strong enough. I have a fear that there's a great deal of flexibility or interpretation in how these designations may be used, and so we want to make sure that we state what we want to happen in the strongest language that we can find. So anyway, that's my motion, permissible uses.
When we discussed this, what I liked about appropriate uses is because the opposite is inappropriate uses. But I'm also in favor of strong language. That was the whole reason for that change. Okay, are you ready for a decision? Those in favor of changing, this would be throughout, right? Change all the uses a little bit, appropriate to permissible. Please raise your hand. And those against? And, abstaining. So motion fails. Anything else on the definitions, the land use definitions? Daniel? Brian first.
Can I just ask a clarifying question to planning? We spoke about transit hubs, and I'm assuming that falls under public, quasi-public. Would that be correct? And if not, where would it fall?
It would, but it would be an allowed use in other zoning. If there's a place where you want a transit hub, a TOD corridor would be the way to identify that.
Sure. So
Brian?
if that's the appropriate place, then I would make a motion that we should include transit hubs in the definition for transit-oriented corridor.
Second by Jennifer. Discussion? Everett?
So therefore, it's inappropriate to use in every other district?
I think if we were to say that, if we were to say it was only appropriate in the transit-oriented corridor, I mean, we would have none in South Maui. And I think we do want one.
I would agree. But I guess my question then is, where would that go? Because I would assume we would want to define where a transit hub is designated, correct?
That is part of the purpose of transit-oriented corridor, is to identify where transit hubs would be located. However, under public quasi-public, that would be a public quasi-public use. And that's allowed basically in any zoning or in any community plan designation. Except for agriculture, I think.
So if that were the case, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, is that in essence you could put a transit hub almost anywhere then, under that definition. If it's going to be, if we would classify it under public, quasi-public, would the suggestion be that we don't need to clarify where transit hub is then?
Ideally, you would put a transit-oriented corridor on the map where you would like it to see a transit hub. Yes. However, absent that, if there is a, what are they called even? A community corridor study or a transit-oriented development study, they would find the location where it best fits and the public use is allowed. But possibly revisiting the maps and finding a location for that would be a good idea.
So I don't think you have to assume that every transit hub is going to be Grand Central Station.
Right, I guess I was just thinking forward when we're going back to maps, that it would be nice to be able to say, there's one here, but if we don't need to define it, then that's okay. I just wanted to ask the question.
We did have an action to create a transit hub in North Kihei, but it didn't specify where. That was one of the questions I had was, but I assume that's something that has to be investigated and where the best place would be for it.
So should I withdraw my motion? Okay, I withdraw my motion.
Any other comments on, okay, Daniel?
So maybe not everyone was clear that we would be reviewing the land use designation definitions. Maybe we could ask if the committee would like maybe 5 or 7 minutes just to read through them, if you haven't had a chance to review them, before we make any final, before we adopt it. So maybe we can ask that question, Chair. Does anybody need maybe a couple of minutes to read through them if they hadn't had a chance to?
Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes to review. You need more?
No, I was suggesting to ask if
Okay.
the committee wanted.
Okay. Does the committee want more time to review the definitions? We're not talking about designations, we're just talking about the definitions right now.
Oh, wait, you need more time? Huh? You done?
Okay, are we done with land use definitions? Okay. Okay, next topic for public testimony is the sections 3.3 to 3.5. So we're not talking about the maps, we're just talking about the text. And so you can offer testimony on any of those sections.
Chair, should I speak now? Great. My name is Harry Lake, CEO of Cole Partners, and we're. Oh. Perfect. My name is Harry Lake, CEO of Cole Partners, and we're assisting in the development of PE Line Promenade, which we're going to rename, by the way. So, but. I believe it's relevant to section 3.4 in that text. It sort of references the fact that 2 of the 4 parcels would be designated as small town center, and the Mauka 2 parcels would be designated as residential. We've always viewed it as one project. Certainly the county and the state has viewed it as one project. We have a stipulated agreement that's on public record, submitted by Mark Hyde, I think on the May 5th meeting. And that was signed by the county as a fully vested subdivision map, already approved by the state, the county, and interveners, some of which have been heavily active in these discussions. And in order for us to be pono with that agreement and what's been previously approved, I think the small town center would be the appropriate designation, which allows for residential, I believe, as you guys have defined it. So we would definitely encourage residential in that, but I don't think we could exclude the other uses and still be consistent with the existing approvals that's fully vested. I know in that text there's reference to the transit-oriented corridor to be designated that existing industrial park, the Kia Gateway, adjacent to us. If there was a reason to step down sort of the zoning on the 4 parcels, I would recommend transit-oriented corridor on the highway 2 parcels, stepping down to small town center on the Mauka 2 parcels, simply because the Department of Transportation, the state has designated Kalaʻulu North as the upcountry highway. And so it'd be the intersection of 2 highways, which would be probably the most appropriate designation for a transit-oriented corridor. So, but at the very least, we would recommend small town center for the parcels in order to be consistent, and also achieve the goals set forth by the CPAC and what I've heard in the community. I'm available as a resource designated by the chairman if helpful. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions to testifier?
So just to be clear, if you look at the language in our package, you're suggesting we put a period after small town center, period.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, that was the original plan. That was earlier. It kind of went back and forth, throughout these discussions. So we're not asking for something that hasn't already been sort of suggested.
Mike?
Thanks for coming, Harry. I believe you said that the State Department of Transportation, I forget what word you used, that in essence they're saying Kalaʻulu would be the beginning of the upcountry highway. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. And so when we do the improvements, which we're slated to put in about $35 million of improvements, that Kalaʻulu extension towards Mauka is be converted. It'll be a state that will take over it, not county. It won't be a county road. Now, whether, that ends up continuing on, that's another dialogue, but I'm just saying that's the plan that's currently adopted by the state, so.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I didn't want to ask you a question because it wasn't part of your testimony, but I think that is the feeling of the community. That's not going to happen. If we can't get a highway going north to south, there's no purpose in putting one east to west. But
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm
I
getting
think
off
it'd be
subject.
a great step towards getting a north-south road, right? Because that would obviously be a natural connection to, what would be a north-south. But anyway, that's a separate topic. But
Yes.
I'm just saying we would comply with what the state has designated. Yeah.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Any other clarifying questions for the testifier?
Thank you. I'll be here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next testifier. Going once. Going twice. Closing public testimony on item E. Okay, so here we are going to be starting with section 3.3. So we have, we went through all these sections last time. We made some very modest changes. We also said that we needed input from those with the knowledge for the cultural correctness of the sections, and we have received them from Kauanohi. So I did ask that Vernon and Kauanohi be resource persons for us to ask further questions here. So starting with, let's just start from the beginning of 3.3. Does everyone see the changes proposed at the very end of the first page? So the last sentence reads, most of North Kihei and South Kihei subareas are within the Kulamoku, more specifically Kulakai, and Wailea subarea spans Kulakai and Honua Ulamoku. So it's basically correcting the, it's at the back, basically correcting the Moku designations.
Let me look at yours. Most of Key and South Point, the Kulakai Moors and Kulakai. Wailea sub-area spans Kulakai and Honua Ulamoku. What part of the Wailea sub-area is in Kulakai? Yeah. If one of our resource persons want to answer that, because I can't think of any part of Wailea sub-area that's in Kulakai.
Yeah, thanks, Vice Chair, for bringing that up. Yeah, correction. So the moku of Honu'ula begins from Kilohana, or Maui Meadows, and Kilohana. That way is the moku of Honu'ula, and it starts Paiahu, Ahupua. So Kulakai would have from Kamaole, Ahupua, all the way through Pulehonui, which is where Sugar Beach, the raceway track, that's all Pulehonui.
Yeah,
So-
I guess, Vernon, my question is like the Honua Ulamoku is roughly where Kilohana Drive is and where the northern Maui Meadows boundary is and going up. So
Yeah.
there is no Wailea sub-area that's in Kulakai. The Wailea sub-area is in the other moku,
Of
Honua
Paiahu. Yeah,
Paiahu, yeah.
Aupua.
So I think that needs to be corrected.
Yes, that's correct. We have to correct that. Correct.
So-
Yeah, there's no Wailea sub area in Kulakai. Correct.
So we can just remove, let's see. More specifically,
Just remove the Kulakai end. So Wailea sub-area would span Honua Ulamoku.
yeah, just remove that part.
Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, so make sure I got this right. So we read most of North Kihei and South Kihei sub-areas are within the Kula Moku, more specifically Kula Kai. And what?
And the Wailea
Yes.
head sub-area spans Honua Ulamoku, or is within the Honua Ulamoku.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so we got a motion from Everett. Do we have a second? Second by Brian. Discussion? Brian?
Apologies for not understanding this, but if we're calling out Wailea, do we need to say McKenna as well? Because it's my understanding that they're two separate areas. But I could be very wrong on that.
Because it only spoke about Wailea at the end of this thing, that's why I went with those sub-areas. To keep it consistent, each sub-area names all the mokus that it spans in the sub-area text. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're questioning whether this section 3.3 should include Makena to Ahihikina'u, yes, then it would be all of that.
Okay.
But
So
it doesn't sound like it's addressing that here.
that was my question. Is so I guess I would make the friendly amendment that we would add.
Makena Ahikinao.
Yes.
It's okay with Everett? Okay. Okay.
I think I'm okay with that.
Okay. Further discussion? So let me read it again, just make sure we got this. Most of North Kihei and South Kihei sub-areas are within the Kula Moku, more specifically Kula Kai. And it's Wailea, Makena, and Ahihikina'u sub-areas are within the Honua Ulamuku. Okay. Tova, and then Brian.
We're moving from summary to being inclusive, in which case we can't really leave Ma'alaya out.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, we're either like doing the summary version of like generally Kihei, or we're calling it all, but we can't do a bit of both.
Correct. That's why I kept it the way it was written here. Yeah.
Ma'alaya is complicated.
Yeah. What's next?
That's a good point.
Otherwise, you can just say the South Maui Community Plan spans all those different moku, all the way to the end, without specifying north, south, Kihei, all the sub-areas. Just name all the mokus that the whole community plan spans. That's a suggestion.
Okay, so a suggestion from our resource person is to, rather than spell them all out in the beginning, that we define them as in each sub-area. Oh, okay.
My thought was, if this is the summary of all of the community plan maps and sub-areas, you can state at the bottom, rather than calling out North Kihei, Ma'alaya, North Kihei, South Kihei, and Makena Wailea, just say that this community plan spans Mokus from Wailuku to Kanayo. Oh, Honolulu. Sorry. I'm getting in the Ahupua'a.
I like that solution.
Brian likes that too.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Vernon, you were going to comment on that too?
Good one. But how we're going to write this is because, so we got to write them, it also includes the Moko of Wailuku, which includes the Aupua of Waikapu, which is in our sub-plan for South Maui plan. You know what I mean? So including Malaya, I think even all the way up to Ukumehami, right? Just before, we including the Pali Highway, Malaya, Waikapu, I think it's up to the golf course. And then it comes down to Kealia Pond and it shoots across to almost Central Base Yard, just about, Central Base Yard, which is also in the Moko of Wailuku. So I guess, Daniel, if we figure out how we include that Moku into our plan. And we can go back to her version. You see how, it's a tough one, but I just want to make sure it's correct. Her version.
Tova?
Would it be helpful to say it spans portions of? Because that's kind of what you're getting at, Vernon, right? You're like implying it's covering the Moku, but it's not covering the Moku.
Rather than span, just say includes Wailuku and Lala'a till Honolulu.
I just want to confirm that you want each Moku listed, though, not of Moku from Wailuku to Kanayo. Right. Each one?
No, not Kanayo, just say Honolulu. Because Kanayo is a Ahupua'a. So we're keeping it in the Moku realm. We haven't gone down to the Ahupua'a yet. And the South Maui is portions of all these Moku because Mauka, Kula Moku spans Mauka, Honolulu Moku spans Mauka, so it is all portions of each Moku.
What do you say, Everett? Okay, and Brian?
I will defer to our resources, so if that's what they say it should be, then yes.
Portions of Moku, the Mokus, you can put like capital M and then after, no? Moku. Yeah, Moku, portions of Moku.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, good. Do we have any other changes to this section before we move on? Okay. Section, so the next one is sub-area 1, Ma'alaya, Kealia.
Just as a note, I'm still working on the mo'olelo for Kulani Hako'i. Wait, this is the wrong one, sorry. Wrong one. What is my question?
Does everyone see the proposed text for sub-area 1? Someone want to make a motion to adopt these changes? Jennifer? Is there a second by Everett? Discussion?
Do you want me to add the suggestions that are on the side as well? I didn't add them because they were suggestions.
Okay, so in my printout it does say, like, the refuge established in 1992.
What do you think? Should we add these comments on the side in there as well, or what was your intention?
My intention on the Lahaina Trail was if it's part of the Na'alahele State Trailway, I feel like it should be recognized as such. Yeah. As far as the dates and stuff, it was just a question. If you folks want it in there, that's fine. If not, it's fine.
Okay, so it looks like the date is in there for the refuge, but not for the Maui Ocean Center. Yeah, so the Lahaina Pali Trail is part of the Na'alahele system. Daniel?
I think the language is great, Kanohi and Vernon. I don't see anything wrong with it from my point of view, but I'm going to object only because our Ma'alaya resident isn't here. Kioke isn't here, and I feel like he should sign off on this. I think he will, but I have to object because he's not here. I just feel in my heart I have to do that. He's spoken so eloquently about this Ma'alaya in our meetings, and I can't see leaving him out of this decision. So that's why I'm going to object.
I agree.
We do have a motion and a second, so it's up to the people making the motion if they want to continue or defer.
Out of respect for our counterparts, I do think we should defer. I think all of them have brought their passion and their history, and they've educated me tremendously. To not have them be able to review it and provide their input, I think I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's a disservice to what they brought to the table.
So was it Jennifer made the motion? Okay, so what's your position?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a very good point, so I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Okay. Any objections? Okay, so deferring this. Okay. Sub-area 2, North Kihei.
ask our resources a question?
Absolutely.
With the comments that you've put off to the side, it said that you're still looking into some things. So is this still an open? Okay, so I would then make a motion that we defer until we have a full and complete recommendation from our.
Second by Daniel. Any objections? Okay, so we'll defer that one too. Sub-area 3, South Kihei. Motion for adoption of the changes here proposed. So moved by Everett. Have a second? Second by Jennifer. Discussion?
Okay, its northern boundary follows the lower portion of Kulani Haku'i Gulch, and Kilohana Drive is its southern boundary. Yeah, as far as the road, I look at Maui Meadows as part of the southern boundary too. You know, up to the. Oh, okay. I won't mention Maui Meadows, but I think we can refer to the subdivision above it to describe its southern boundary, along with Kilohana Drive. There's a motion, right, and second? So I'd like to make a motion to name that unnamed subdivision Maka Pi'ilani Highway. Which name I can't say. I don't know why. Just to add that. That's a friendly amendment.
I propose that we add Maui Meadows. I would like to amend my motion to call out Maui Meadows as portion of this.
Let me ask you, resource people, does that sound reasonable? Uh-oh.
Hey, Karen, later when I give back with you, we gotta put those markings.
Yeah.
You know, the appropriate markings, the Okina and the Ka'ako.
Yeah.
No need now, but.
Daniel?
We have the discussion before about meaning of words and meaning of place names, like Kama'ole, for example, Paiahu. So, you know, there's a literal translations of names, literal translations, and then there is the meaning, that the reason why a place was given a place name or the name of Ahupua'a, and doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily a case where one follows the other, that the literal translation of the place name is the actual kauna of the name, the meaning of that name for that place. The kauna of the name is known to the people who named it and to whom that ike was passed down, and they know the actual kauna of the name. So I think when we say referred to as Kamaole in the Kihei Pacific Development Plan, which means the literal translation is, is childless or barren if you look it up in the Hawaiian dictionary. But that doesn't, and it says the name reflects the region's previously undeveloped inland character. That's a supposition. You're assuming that. You're speculating. Oh no, I see that's not in, because you didn't highlight it. It's not underlined. It's the original text. So I know that's the original text that you didn't touch or edit or anything. So I'm objecting to the use of that, to including that at all. Just say this. You could say it's referred to Kamaole in the Pacific Community Plan, but don't the rest of the sentence, which means childless or barren. The name reflects the region previously developed inland. I recommend we delete that as a friendly amendment.
So delete the whole sentence or just after the comma?
Sorry. Yeah, just after the comma, delete everything after the comma and the last sentence of the first paragraph. Oh, I haven't read that for you, but okay. Maybe you have some other. I don't know. Whoever made the motion, would they accept that as a friendly amendment? I don't know who made the motion.
I'm waiting for a response.
Oh, go ahead.
Karika?
I fully get and understand where you're coming from. I guess my 2 cents opinion on the matter is that what you're saying, you have literal translation accurate, and then you have interpretive translation in absence of literal translation, and then you also have words with no meaning. I guess my question would be more for your consideration as far as the deeper level thinking and the counter that you're referring to. I guess usually that's reserved for those with a deeper understanding of the language and appreciation for the culture. The literal translation, which is oftentimes reflected in documents, is for the educational purposes of both residents and visitors alike. So I guess if we deleting the literal translation, are we detracting from the educational component that we are trying to sort of enhance the people that traverse this place? That's just for this body's consideration as far as literal, interpretive, and words without meaning. Because I recall this similar sentiments with Honua'ula when we had that in the beginning, which we also took some different actions with that words. But I guess it's just balancing the deeper level thinking for those within and of the culture versus the educational component on the surface level that we're trying to do as part of our policies and I think actions as well that we made for the stewardship component of this plan.
I understand the educational component. I would be all right with adding which the literal translation means childless or barren, but remove the interpretive part, which gives one the impression that that was meant by why Kamaole is used. We're referencing Ahupua'a here. That's why it's the civic. That's why it's used in the civic plan. It's referencing the Ahupua'a. But I don't want to give the public the impression that the kauna of that name has anything to do with the undeveloped inland character of the word. So if you just maybe delete that part and just say which the literal translation means childless or barren, so they don't have to open a dictionary or Google it, just save them a quick step, that's fine too.
Just a little food for thought. I get Daniel's interpretation. And it can be solved by just putting literal translation for Kama'ole. But I remember growing up when we used to come from Makena to Wailuku or whatever. I was in elementary school. That whole area was pretty much barren. And that's the characteristic of that area. And it says here, regions previously undeveloped inland character. So I think that kind of explains it. And a little more on how places are named, especially by our kupuna. It's not necessarily just how the land looked, it's how the land laid. And taking in, the Wawakua as well as, to the ocean. So being that the inland portion, and they specify inland, undeveloped, it was barren. There wasn't much there. And when you look at the archaeology in the area, except for the Mauka part, that where the Kama'ole solar project was going to be, that was the area that was very much used by our kupuna, because you can see the sites there. So yeah, just food for thought on how to interpret stuff like this.
I guess what I'm trying to avoid is assuming what I know what our kupuna meant when they named places and why they named it. I don't know why they were given that name. And I think places that we know of today or 50 years or how old we are may have looked quite different 300-400 years ago. So there's just a really gray area here, and I just want to stay away from gray areas as much as possible. And this is going to be it's a community plan document, and there just happens to be a lot of Hawaiians on this, the CPAC this year. So yeah, I'm happy to keep the definition in that this is, I guess that would be my motion, to amend my motion to include, which literally, I forgot the word, literal translation means childless or barren, and then just drop the paragraph, the phrase, the rest of what comes after the comma. The name reflects the region's previously undeveloped inland character. So I guess that's my position and my friendly amendment to whoever made the motion.
Has everyone made the motion?
Okay.
Second by Jennifer. Okay. Well, why don't we just deal with that motion, and then we can move on to the rest of it, just to keep things simple. Any objections? Okay. And then let's look at the last paragraph then, which also has some changes in it. And if, to be consistent, you probably want to change the last sentence as well.
Doesn't
No.
Kalepo come from the myth or the story of Umia?
And I'm going to defer to the culture advisors on.
The name is Umi A Liloa, so there's a hyphen between the I and the A. What was your question, Daniel?
Kalepo.
I mean, that's me. I don't think the fish pond was renamed. Kalepo Lepo is the kai location, shoreline location from almost like where Sugar Beach, not Sugar Beach, the pier, Suda Pier, and to where Cody Nemit's project is about Waihuli Kai. So that's that area, Kalepo Lepo. More in relationship to the reef, the shoreline, the kai, not so much inland. My tutus were born in Kalepo Lepo, and they buried in Kalepo Lepo. Some of them were buried in Waiakoa and Kaonaulu. You know, it's recorded. They never mentioned Ko'ia'ie. So for me personally, I've never heard that where the fish pond name, it was renamed to Kalepo Lepo. Fish pond is in parts of Kalepo Lepo. And that whole place is Lepo. I mean, we all know that part, right? And then you can see the area, how much it covers. You know, it goes all the way to the Hawaiian Church or almost to Suda Pier. But that's my description of Kalepo Lepo. I don't know where that part came, where it Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond was renamed to Kalepo Lepo. I don't think so. Unless you guys saw that one someplace.
Okay, like Vernon, you know, this is area, his family's from there, his family's buried there. He should be here voting on this and making revisions, but I respect what he has to say, and I would be happy to make a friendly amendment and to say instead of Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond was renamed to Kalepo Lepo, that Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond was found in the area known as Kalepo Lepo? Meaning
The fish, it's in Kalepo Lepo. The Ko'ia'ie, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I know it's in that area is called Kalepo Lepo.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying that you, having lived there and your kupuna, don't ever remember the fish pond being renamed Kalepo Lepo, but yes, the area is Kalepo Lepo. So I'm good with going with making a friendly amendment to change the sentence to read, during the repairs Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond, during the repairs Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond, let's see, I'm going to do this. It's not renamed. Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond found in the area known as Kalepo Lepo, meaning dirt. So that's going to be an incomplete sentence there. I need help with that.
Just point out, this is talking about the 1500s. It's not talking about today.
Yeah. Okay, I got to think some more.
Kaonoi?
It's saying that the repairs were done in the 1500s. So in thinking along the lines of Daniel, we would have to change all of the Kalepo Lepo Fish Pond to Ko'ia'ie Fish Pond. So how do we make that simple? It can be made with less words. I have to think.
Well, if what it says is true, then all you have to do is just change the second mention of Kalepo Lepo to Ko'ia'ie. So in that case, we'd say that it was built as Ko'ia'ie and then renamed to Kalepo Lepo in the 1500s, if that is correct, this history.
So we would have to take all the lepo out and replace it with ko'ie'ie. Take all the lepo out and say ko'ie'ie in place of right? Lepo.
Yeah, I just want to make, I just got to check with somebody. We can defer on this one, if you guys don't mind. And probably be tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, because I might be viewing this differently, but so you guys think that the Ko'i'i'i name came after Kalepo? I mean, any of you guys? No, I'm just asking. Like, you guys think that Ko'i'i'i it was Kalepo fish pond and it was named Ko'i'i'i? Any of you guys thought of that?
I don't think any of us know the answer to that question.
No, I just like ask because maybe you guys saw it, read it someplace.
Oh, it was in a movie.
Yeah, so that's why I go check, because what I said is what I know, but I'm going to check with one kupuna that lived on that fish pond.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about if we at least deal with the first sentence in that paragraph? Got a little bit done here behind us.
I apologize for that.
No problem. I just want to make a motion to accept the change to the first sentence in the last paragraph. Moved by Everett, second by Jennifer. Discussion.
I'm just going to clarify the last sentence in the first paragraph, just so we get the right one in the notes.
So the first sentence, the coastline of Sub-Area 3s and its corresponding beach parks are popular with residents and visitors alike. First sentence in the last paragraph.
And you just want to have only that?
Yes, because we need to wait for the rest. Everett made a motion to approve the first sentence. Okay, and there was a second for that too. And we'll just wait. Are there any objections? Okay, so we just have to come back to the last part. Yes. Okay, next section is why the Sub-Area 4. So just a question to Kaunohi. This comment questions that the story of Leah applies to Wailea. However, I don't see. Did you have an alternate mo'olelo for this about Wailea?
I went with the ocean, the shoreline Kahamanini, which is the fishing ground area.
Okay.
Wailea Bay.
At the bottom. Okay, got it.
And I couldn't do all the corrections in the top, so I just went and rewrote the whole thing.
Okay. Okay, so the proposal is to replace the entire original text, which is at the top paragraph, with what comes down below that, which starts with Sub-Area 4. I mean, that's a proposal from, yes. Yes. Yep. That's a suggestion from our resource person. Moved by Everett. Is there a second? 10 seconds, okay. I do know Kahamanini, at least that's something I know.
In the last portion where it says where one will find lots of fish, I think it's supposed to say find, not to removing the S. Would be my friendly reminder amendment.
I don't know. Okay, discussion? Any objections? Okay, I move it up to the proposed change, sub-area 4. Sub-area 5. Moved by Everett. Seconded by Brian. Yes, all the proposed changes for sub-area 5 by Kaonohi and Vernon.
Okay, well, this is Kahanoi's area. I mean, this is where her family's from. She's a lineal descendant. So, yeah. Have to go with her Ike and Mana'o on this.
Any further discussion? Any objections? Okay, adopted sub-area 5, changes proposed by Vernon and Kaonohi. Sub-area 6, Ahikina'o.
Okay, I believe Kavika is a lineal descendant of Ahikina'o. Used to live out there, right? On the coast. The family had a holiday there, in the village there. Oh, maybe it's the wrong Kavika. Sorry.
I think it might be the wrong century, not sure. So I guess this is a question. Is it still true that there's no resident population? Yes. It's true. It's still true. Okay. Okay. In that case, I think there's probably no change. I guess there's no change proposed here in this section.
He's not a resident, though.
Okay. Are we done with sub-area 6 then? Any other proposed changes there? No changes. Okay. Okay, so it is 8:24, and I think it's... Yeah? Which one? Which page are you looking at?
Number 6, back to number 6.
Oh, okay, inside after natural, okay. Oh, we missed that one. Light blue, okay. So we actually have a couple of changes there. Marine and cultural resources, and then Ahikina'o Natural Area Reserve. Okay, someone make a motion for that? Oh. You guys are making it hard on me. Come on. Tova moved, Brian seconded. Okay. Kauanohi. Discussion? Any objections? Okay, I'm going to adopt those changes. Okay, so I think it's too late for us to start on another big area, so we'll, Brian?
I just want to say a personal thank you to you both. I know I was the one that kind of threw out the requests for your assistance. So I want to personally thank you because I certainly was not the individual to try and attempt to do this. So I want to say, extend my great appreciation.
The check is in the mail.
Adjourning the meeting at 8:26.